welcome back to Plans and a Murder. So today I will be planning in my Aura Estelle, and the kit I will be using is called Worth in the Rose Gold option. And the reason I'm doing this is because, not to tease y'all, because it was a limited edition kit, and the reason that it was is because we offered it in 2 different foil colors. But now that it's going to be a permanent item because it's been highly requested to be brought back, we're only offering it in rose gold as that was the higher number option of what people bought it for. Does that make sense? So like rose gold foil was like the most popular out of the 2 color options that we offered it in. So we will be bringing it back permanently. So coming this upcoming Tuesday, you will be able to purchase it then. And I just kind of wanted to lay it out for you guys so that you can kind of see what it looks like with the full, spread. There you go. There's a word. So today we're going to be talking about Chris Watts, and I have so much to say about this case. So if you don't have a snack and you don't have a drink, go get one because it's going to be a long one. Chris and Shanann met in 2010 for a double date that their friend or her cousin, I can't remember which one, set up for them because he actually ended up messaging her through Facebook and they ended up hitting it off pretty well to the point that they ended up getting married 2 years later. They also ended up moving from North Carolina to Colorado, and when they did that, they ended up introducing Bella to their family. They ended up having Bella in 2013, and then Catherine, but they nicknamed her Cece, in July of 2015. Shannon actually worked for a multi-level marketing company called Lavelle, while Chris actually worked at a petroleum site. She was pretty consistently on lives on Facebook and had a very outgoing personality, while Chris was the complete opposite of that. He was more of the shy and reserved type, which people were kind of like okay with. But just like Mary Kay, where you can win a car for being like a really good salesperson, they do the same thing on the Lavelle marketing thing, and she ended up winning Alexis. So that means that she was like pretty high up there. Friends and family had expressed that they were actually really good together. They rarely fought, and they said that Chris was a really good dad. Neighbors and friends did say that they were complete opposites, but they worked really well with each other. But somewhere along the lines of 2018, this is when they started to have like a lot more arguments, and the neighbors started to notice this. And in May of 2018, Shannon found out that she was pregnant, and she did a live showing Chris that he was going to be a dad again. And people were kind of weird about it because he expressed like little to no emotion, which like you would find that to be kind of strange when, like it's a new baby coming. But people kind of like shrugged it off because obviously like he was a very shy and introverted person. But in June, Shannon and the girls went to visit her family for 6 weeks. And this is when people were suspecting that they weren't on very good terms. And neighbors would say that they were starting to argue a lot about like really nonsense stuff. Like they would be having like legit screaming matches in the front of their yard. Like it was crazy. During those 6 weeks, this is when he meets Nicole Kessinger. Shanann started to notice a difference in Chris as he wasn't answering her phone calls or text messages, and she started to pick up that something just wasn't right. And he used the excuse that he was just really tired and stressed from work and that he just missed the girls, and that was that. I think he ended up having like a 1 minute phone call conversation with her that day, and that was it. July 14th, Chris and Nicole had talked all day while he missed 4 phone calls from Shanann, and later that day, he finally answered and graced her with a 1 minute phone call again. And it turns out that he was with Nicole all day. Shanann texted her friend saying that she was pretty upset and venting about Chris, that he just wasn't the same and something has to be going on because he's just not being the same. And also, she vented to her friends that he had mentioned that he didn't want the baby anymore and that he wanted out. And Shanann obviously didn't want that. And I mean, like, what can you do? Like, you're already pregnant. He had asked, like, they had planned for her to get pregnant because he wanted to try for a boy, and just like out of nowhere your husband comes to you and is like, "Yeah, I don't want you nor the baby." Like, what do you excuse me, what do you mean? She also suggested that they should do marriage counseling, and he had turned it down. So, yeah. Hang tight with me because we're about to go through the whole crap show that's about to go down. I'm about to throw out a whole bunch of dates at you so that you realize how quickly this escalated between the two to the point that he ends up doing what he did to his family. Just hang with me, okay? On July 18th, Nicole and Chris share nude photos with each other. And this is the infamous photos that you see online anytime that you Google Nicole Kessinger. They're not nude photos in particularly, but they are pretty scandalous. You know what I mean? She's like, it's the one where she's like standing against the door and like you can see the mirror behind her. And it's like, like it's a pretty good shot. I gotta give her that. She looked pretty good, and he was saving these to the calculator app, and the calculator app wasn't really a calculator. It just looked pretty like normal standard app. But if you actually clicked on it, you would need to put in a passcode, and you could see like photos and like documents that you could save there that are private that nobody else can see. But to like everyone else, it looks like a basic calculator type of thing. This same day, he actually Googles spots for vacation. So he was already looking to have like a nice little cute vacay with this girl. On July 24th, Nicole Googles man I'm having an affair with says he will leave his wife, which she knows that he's married. So, you know, bad on her. The same day, Shannon was calling and texting and letting him know how she felt through text and how she really wanted to work things out. And I'm really glad that she did this because there is proof and there is evidence that she was like putting in the time and the effort to like fix this marriage. And it's like really good receipts on her end of how innocent she was about this whole situation. On July 25th, Chris Googled all things about love, like when do you know when you're in love and when do you say I love you and like things like that. And people found this to be extremely strange. Just because like he's already married, how would you not know what when that feels like, and two, like when to say it. Do you know what I mean? Like you would think that that would already be something that he's already fully processed and learned and like went through in life, but obviously not. News stations were like really stuck on this for a really long time. So this is when people started to think that he was like a hella narcissist, because he had no idea what the emotion was. On July 28th, Nicole and Chris go on a vacay to the sand dunes, which is where they have those photos together that you can clearly see now on Google all over the place. And he also saved these over to his calculator app, so can't forget about that little app. On July 31st, so just like a couple of days short from when he was on his vacay with his girl, he flies over to North Carolina to visit Shanann and the girls. But his in-laws did mention that he was like extremely disconnected from the family. Like he really wasn't, like he was there, but he wasn't, if that makes sense. August 2nd through the 3rd, Chris is saving more photos to his app, and he's actually talking to Nicole while he's in North Carolina. Like, zero respect. Like, he's like completely checked out at this point. On August 4th, Nicole was searching for wedding dresses, then Google searched Shannon and Chris for their Facebook profiles. I don't know what to think about this. Like, you've only known the dude for a little bit. Like, you're already Googling wedding dresses. Like, I'm thinking that he's, like, pillow talking this girl to the absolute freaking max, bro. Like, it is wild. On August 7th, Shanann is texting her friends that she is, like, super worried about her marriage because Chris seems really disinterested, and that he's told her many, many times at this point that he doesn't want the baby anymore. She was already past her trimester, so like I think legally there was nothing that she could do. If that were the case, like if that was the option that he was pretty much opting for. And she's kind of like, well, like I can't reverse it. And he was the one that actually wanted to try a third time for a boy. So she was really, really emotional about it. You can actually read all the text messages too. I've done way too much digging into this case since it came out. But yeah, you can see all the text messages, you can see all her lives, and you can like see everything pretty much. If you just do a really quick Google search about this case, you can find everything. You just can't find the original Facebook page. I believe they've archived her Facebook page and his. So everything that you can find right now is just basically from like Reddit or just Google searches that people like saved and stuff. But yeah. Anyways, August 8th is her 15-week appointment. She also canceled her gender reveal party, and when a friend had actually reached out to her and was kind of like, "Hey, like I just wanted to reach out to ask like about the gender reveal party. Why was it canceled?" And she had just told her friend that her and Chris were no longer compatible. And that same day, Nicole had the audacity, you guys, to Google marrying your mistress. I mean, I don't know. Like, you're literally tearing a family apart and you have like zero sympathy for it. Like, it really blows my mind how some women are like this. Shanann had bought a book for Chris because he agreed to it, mind you, that he would read it. It was a marriage counseling book, and since he didn't want to go to marriage counseling, she was kind of like, "Well, can you at least like read this book?" And he agreed to it. So she's like she is trying hard to like save this marriage, and I don't know. I think she had like an idea of what was going on, but I didn't think that she knew like what was happening, if that makes sense. Um, on August 9th, Cheyenne had to leave to Arizona for a work conference. Her friend is also named Nicole, so we're going to rename her to Bestie because Nasty Nicole is, we're going to name her Nasty Nicole, and then we're going to have Bestie Nicole, okay? So Bestie Nicole and her go to Arizona together for a work conference because they both work for Lavelle, and Bessie came through, and I'm gonna let you know why in a little bit. But Bessie stated that Shanann didn't have a lot of energy. She wasn't really being herself, which is understandable because she's pregnant and her husband is trying to leave her. Her world is completely falling apart, and like you're not gonna feel good during that time. On August 10th, Chris sends Shannon a like really strange photo of, supposedly it's supposed to be one of the girls that they are on the sofa, like they're laying on the sofa, but they kind of look like Barbie legs, to be honest. Like it doesn't look like actual human legs. And it has like a white drape over their body, and he posted it on her Facebook page. It was really strange, and like people looking back at it now, they were kind of like, was this kind of like a warning of what he was going to do? But she kind of was like, I don't know what to think about this. And I think she ended up removing it from her page. But yeah, he ended up posting that on her Facebook page. Like that is public too, mind you. And that same day, he had asked his neighbors to watch the girls for him as he goes and does his dirty deeds with Nicole and goes out on a date with her. And this is also actually when he pays for the meal on their credit card, by the way. So this is when Shanann finds out that there is something actually going on because it was a pretty high bill, and it would be like nearly impossible for one person to spend that much money for like by themselves. Do you know what I mean? Like when you go on a date, it's going to be like 60 to 80 bucks sometimes, if not more. And yeah, she became like really suspicious after this, and she was like questioning him about it because she was like really on top of their finances because they had already been bankrupt before, and she obviously didn't want that to happen again, especially because they're doing so well and they were already having financial troubles, so she was like really on top of their stuff. So Shanann and her friend Nicole actually decided that they were gonna go home early because Shanann wasn't feeling so good. And their flights were actually delayed so long that Shanann didn't end up coming home until 1:48 a.m. I'm gonna start getting pretty close to timelines instead of dates at this point because things started to kind of go downhill really fast from here. At 5:30 in the morning, the neighbors catch Chris moving his truck to the garage as he parked on the street because there were many arguments between him and Shanann about his truck throwing oil on the pavement, and she didn't really like it. And, you know, like I personally don't like that either because it kind of makes your pavement look really gross. But they did catch on camera of him going back and forth a number of times, and I believe the count was 3 times, but there is no clear definition of what he was bringing to the truck. At 8:30 in the morning, Chris called the girls' elementary school and unenrolled the girls from school. This I kind of found really crazy. I don't know about you, but for me, maybe because I'm not a parent nor a murderer, but my thought after killing my whole ass family is not, let me take them off the roster. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not something that I would think about immediately. That I just found really, really strange. That same morning, Bessie ended up texting Shannon, asking her how she was feeling, and she didn't end up hearing from Shanann, which was really not like her. Um, and she was asking if she made it to her appointment and if she was okay. And she found this to be really strange that she wasn't replying because she was one that was constantly on her phone. Like she would text back almost immediately all the time. And when she wasn't replying, she knew that something was going on. I guess Bessie had a really good gut instinct that something just wasn't right. That she got her son and they actually drove over to the Watts' house to see what was kind of happening, to check up on Shannon, to see if she was there. And she was trying to get to the door and they had a ring doorbell, and the Ring doorbell actually notified Chris that there was some movement, obviously, and he saw that it was the friend. And the friend had actually messaged Chris and was like, "Hey, I just wanted to know where Shanann was. She hasn't been answering," so on and so forth. So it was kind of strange to her that he was kind of like, "Oh, well, she said that she was going to be on a play date for the girls." And when she went up to the house, she noticed that the shoes that Shanann would wear almost every single day were at the door, and it kind of freaked her out. And when he had said that she was gone, she checked in the garage because the top of the garage they had windows at the top. And when she checked over that, or maybe her son checked over that because she was kind of petite, when he or she checked over that, the car was still there. The Lexus was still there with the 2 car seats. So she would never leave without the girls' car seats. Like, that's not who she was. From what I was getting from this, like, the mom, like, Shanann was a pretty OCD mom. Like, she was pretty on top of everything and was a really good mom. So, like, car seats, not, like, going with the girls was kind of not an option. So she ends up calling Chris again and she's like, "Hey, like, where's Shanann? Where are the girls? Like, you can't tell me that that's the case because the car's still here." And he kind of like didn't really know what to say. So she was like, "I'm calling the cops." And he's like, "No, don't do that. Like, don't do that." And she ends up calling the doctor's office that Shanann was supposed to go to. And when she found out that she didn't go to the doctor's appointment, she just like completely flipped out and she ended up calling the cops and she asked them to do a welfare check. So when the police come, there's actually footage of this, by the way. The police end up coming and they can't enter the house because they need the um, what is it called? Permission of the owner to get inside the house. And so they're just like kind of walking around the whole entire premises of the home, and the neighbors are kind of noticing that there's like police outside and things like that. And um, they end up Shanann's friend Nicole ends up calling Chris and is like, "Hey, the cop is here. He's asking if you can just give him the code to the garage." And he was just like, "Oh, it doesn't work." I don't, I don't know about you, but if it were me, I'd be doing everything possible for that police officer to get into my house immediately if something's going on with my family. Like, the police officers already knew that something was kind of up with the way that he was reacting. And yeah. It's strange from the beginning. And I love Bessie. Like, chef's kiss to this girl because it just happened so quickly for him that, like, he didn't even get the taste of the life that he wanted without them. So in the footage, they're already, you can tell that the cop is kind of suspecting him because he's asking him, like, a whole lot of questions, and they found Chris to be really strange with the way that he was reacting. Like, the cop would kind of ask, like, "What's going on? What's happening?" And he was like, "I don't know, like, she's supposed to be on a play date." And he's like, "But the car's still downstairs." And he's like, "Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what's going on." Well, the friend is, like, panicking, like, full on panicking in the back, and she's like digging and scouring through the entire house. Like, she's still like wherever the cop is, but she'll be like, "This isn't right." Or like she was the one that noticed that the bed sheets weren't on the master bedroom and the beds weren't made in the girl's room, which she was kind of like she would never leave the house like that. And she was like having full on panics about this. Like, good job, Bestie, because like if it weren't for her, he would probably still be like kind of out and loose and like, like living life. Like, obviously they would find him because they found the bodies, but like the fitted sheets weren't in the master bedroom. There was also the rest of the bed sheets were also in the downstairs trash. The girls' beds weren't made. And the friend knew that this just wasn't something that she would do. And also, the medication of Shanann was still downstairs and she had lupus. So she was like on constant medication. One of the girls had really bad allergies. So she always carried an EpiPen with her, which she didn't have. Her purse was downstairs. And then, girl, Bestie ended up finding Shanann's cell phone, like, shoved into the cushions of the couch. And she was like, "This is it." Like, Shanann would never leave the house without her cell phone. And she was just like, something's going on, something's happening, so on and so forth. So the next day, the local news end up coming over and they want to do an interview with Chris. And Shanann's mom actually told him, "Don't do the interview. Don't do the interview." They always have the father as a prime suspect, and you can go and you can search up interviews that she's done, and she's like, "I thank God that he did that interview." Because if you go and watch that interview, you guys, oh my God, it is so gut wrenching because he had like zero remorse. Like, zero. He was smiling and like, like if your family's missing, your whole entire family is missing, you would think that you would have like dark circles under your eyes from not being able to sleep or like puffy eyes from like crying so much. He didn't shed one single tear in that interview. He was smiling and he was like I also looked up body language stuff like this, and he was like holding himself like extremely tight as if it was like um like a defense mechanism. Also, like he would lick his lips like constantly, and they said that that was kind of like a refresher for him to like wipe out the lies that he had. I don't know. It was really strange, but yeah, I will link everything that I watched over the last couple of years, but it was a very strange interview. His body language just wasn't right. It was so crazy. The day that he murdered them, he was frantically deleting messages and photos from Nasty Girl Nicole, and he also had a 51-minute phone conversation with her, and she states that she had no idea what happened that day. I have my own opinions about Nicole. Like, I think she had some part of this, but I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. On August 14th, Nicole was Googling Shanann, and she also Googled if cops can trace deleted messages. Hmm, strange. Suspicious, like Bailey Sarian says. When the FBI had asked Chris if he was having an affair, he said, quote unquote, "Nah, I wouldn't do that." Boy, you got me messed up. They actually asked him if he could do a polygraph test, and the way that they interrogated him, mm, also chef's kiss, you guys. Like, I watched this interrogation so many times, and the way that they mind excuse my language, but the way that they mind fuck you, you guys, the lady was like, "Okay, I'm gonna have you take a polygraph test, and I'm gonna ask you anything that's like 2016 is going to be an automatic lie, right?" And he was like, "Okay." So she was like, "What's your name?" And he's like, "Chris Watts." And she's like, "In 2016, did you like do so and so?" And he was like, "No." So he was like, he, she was like, "Even if it's true, you just lie about it, right?" And she was like, "You are such a bad liar." And, like, obviously, when you're taking a polygraph test, that's going to freak somebody out, like, completely freak someone out. And he ends up obviously failing miserably, and he kept denying that he had anything to do with it. While all of this was happening, one of his coworkers ended up logging into his computer at work and found all the emails between him and Nasty Girl, and actually turned them over. And then Nasty Girl actually turns herself in, and she was like, "I just want to kind of be here because we did have an affair," type of thing. And there's also interrogation of her as well, and she had like a really hard time wanting to give up her phone. That is really suspicious to me. I don't know about you. And they actually found out that Chris's truck has a tracking device that you can kind of see where the truck has been going for a certain amount of hours or days. I don't know how it goes. And so they traced the truck, and they found that the truck was at a certain spot for a very long time that morning, and a very odd time in the morning too. And this is when supposedly he actually dumped bodies, which he did. And they actually brought a drone out as they're interrogating him, and they ended up finding the freshly moved dirt and also the sheets of Shanann. But they had no idea where the girls were at this point. So this is when the FBI actually bring in his dad, and he says that he actually confesses to his dad after the dad was like, "You can kind of tell me anything," type of thing. Like, "We just want to know what's going on with the family. Like, we're here for you," type of thing. And he actually gets Chris to confess that, well, supposedly it was a fake confession, but still. He gets a confession out of him saying that Shanann and him were having a really bad argument that morning, and that um they were talking about the separation, supposedly, and that she was like, "You're never going to see the girls, and you're never taking them away from me." And he saw on the baby monitor that she was strangling the girls. Like, she was suffocating them, not strangling them. I'm sorry. she was suffocating them, and then he fully blacked out and went into a rage and ended up choking her to death. And um so technically he confessed to murdering one person. So right after that, the FBI come in, like nearly like 2 seconds after the door opens, and they come in and they start to pressure him even more, because kind of like you already have him cracked open, so like why not just fully get him completely open. And um when he does tell the truth of where the bodies were, they were kind of like, we already know where the bodies are, we just want to know where the girls are. And he points to the tanks, and he's like, they're inside of the tanks. And he's like, yeah. So that just blows my mind, because the way that they said how small these tanks were, the tank hole is only 8 inches. Like, can you imagine shoving your child in there? Like, at that point, I would think, like, after you already dug your wife in a hole, you suffocate one of your own children, and then you have them in a tank. You shove their body into a tank, and then you go downstairs, suffocate your second girl, and then go back up and shove the other one into a tank. You cannot tell me that you had no right mind at all whatsoever in that moment. Like, it was so bad that I believe it was Bella, that was obviously the oldest, that she was much larger than what Bella was. I mean, Cece was, and there was actually hair found on the edge of the rim from how hard he was shoving her down there. It That just blows my mind. And after all of this, Bad Nicole actually Googled everything about Amber Fry. And if you don't know who Amber Fry is, that is Scott Peterson's mistress, but she actually had zero idea that he was married with a pregnant wife at that. Um, and so she was Googling, like, what is Amber Fry's net worth? And what is Amber Fry? Did Amber Fry come out with a book? And what is Amber Fry doing now? Like, I don't know. I find that kind of weird, suspicious, you know? Chris actually ended up going to jail, federal prison, right? I think that's the one. And he got 4 counts of first-degree murder. He did end up going up for the death penalty, but Shanann's parents decided that it wasn't their right to take away his life as he did of their own daughter. So he's now serving 4 life terms. So he's serving one for each kid. So one for Nico, which is who Shanann was pregnant with, and then one for Celeste, and one for Bella, and then one for Shanann. I don't know, you guys. I find this story to be really crazy. Um, just how separated he was from this whole thing is just really wild to me. He did end up doing an interview in jail. Like, they went to go visit him in jail. And he did an interview that was about 5 hours or so. I have listened to every single minute of that. And he confessed to everything that he did and the way that he did it and how it happened. The way that he explained it is that he and Shanann were, she had actually got home. She had changed from being on the flight and stuff. Obviously, like, I do that too. And she was like kind of touchy feeling him as if she kind of wanted to have sex with him. And he said that he felt like that was a test, and he did end up having sex with her. And immediately after, they actually ended up having the talk about the separation, and that he still wanted to go with it after he already had sex with her, mind you. And he said that the way that he did it was he was on top of her, and he kind of choked her to death, and then the girls were still alive when he put them in the truck. And then After he had already dug up the bodies, the two girls were sleeping in the back of the car, and I believe it was Bella that was the last one. He actually ended up suffocating Cece in front of Bella, with the bed sheets that he had actually took with him from their beds, and then put Cece into the tank first, and then went back for Bella. And supposedly Bella had asked him, "Are you going to do the same thing that you did to Cece?" And he had told the interviewers, like, he can't even remember if he responded or not. And he ended up suffocating her as well. And as he was suffocating her, she was the one that fought back. Cece didn't fight back, but Bella did. And he was like, but that was who she was. She was a fighter. Like, I knew that she was going to be the hardest one. Um, and he said that he scratched her, or that she scratched him, and like she fought hard until like basically he suffocated her to death, and then put her in the tank too. And he actually like shoved her in there, and he said that some of her skin actually like what was like stuck after he had did that, because of how hard he had shoved her. That's just so hard for me to say. He said that he thinks that it was just a lot of pent up anger from like the start of their marriage, because his family actually didn't like Shanann, and he just felt like Nicole actually like listened to what he wanted. So, yeah. It's a really effed up story, and from the interviews that I've watched, a lot of people said that it is really likely that a Caucasian in their mid 30s that is married and having an affair is most likely to murder their entire family. That is just, oh, it is wild to me. It is wild. But I think that Nicole had something to do with it. I think that she knew what she was doing, and it actually has resurfaced that Nicole has changed her name, and she actually wrote Chris in jail. And I don't know how they let that happen, to be honest. I think it's really strange that she's allowed to talk to him. And I just recently watched a video of Chris's sister talking to him about a memorial, and they were kind of like giggling about it. And I'm just kind of like, how can you talk to your brother knowing what he did? But yeah, that is the Chris Watts case. It was a lot of research, and I basically loved every single minute of it. But yeah, let me know what next case I should do. I'm thinking about doing Scott Peterson just because we mentioned him, but also I'm thinking about Stephanie Lazarus, I think was her name. That one's really crazy. So, yeah. Thank you for joining me, and have a great day.